Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. On today's episode, we are going to interview real estate development superstar Kimberly Marie from the Indianapolis area. She's having tremendous success down there, and she's going to tell us all her secrets. So stay tuned. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free. You can also like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. Also, we ask that you post a link to today's show on all your social media to help spread the word. Now, let's say hello to Kimberly Marie. Hello, Kimberly. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. So, Kimberly, can you give us a brief explanation of your background and what it was that allowed you to transition into the world of real estate investing?
Yeah, so I have a background in healthcare, actually. I was a doctor of physical therapy. And throughout my schooling, actually, when I was training and just doing my school for my W-2 job, that's when I got into real estate to pay off my school debt. So I started with flipping houses because originally that was my goal, just to get a large lump sum of cash to pay off student debts. And then as I continued doing that, I realized, wow, there's actually a lot of money to be made here. And, flipping houses doesn't necessarily fit what I would want my life to look like because it's very hands-on, on-site, managing contractors, managing people. So I kind of started doing transition to buy and hold single family, and then eventually buy and hold multifamily. And by that time I was done with school. And so I only lasted 1 year as a DPT before I quit my job and went full-time into real estate. So I did the natural progression of single family to multifamily.
Now, in recent years, as anyone who watches television has seen, a lot of people, millions in fact, have contemplated or actually attempted to get involved in real estate, and not many of them have succeeded. Can you tell us how you were able to begin and get traction in this industry when so many others were unable to?
Yeah, for sure. I think a big component is focus. I think a lot of new people, when they want to get into the industry, can want to get their license or start wholesaling or raising money or flipping. And there's so much noise. And I think it's important to just focus on one thing. So when I got into it, I had a very specific goal of I need to have lump sums of cash coming in so I can pay off my debt. So flipping homes made sense for me. And so I focused on only that. And I would say no to other things like getting my license, for instance. I've never been a licensed agent. And I was like, well, it's not my goal. Like I need to just focus on one thing. And so with that focus, I also focused on a couple areas. So I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I invest in very specific zip codes here in the city. So I would only look at those zip codes and say no to everything else. And I learned the market very, very well. So if I saw something like hit the market before and after it was flipped, or I knew what kind of finishes were going in, what was selling, what kind of people were coming into this area. So I had a really good understanding of my market too. So I think between that, it just came down to focus of just different things of the market and what I wanted to do.
So that's contrary to what I would have expected. I would have thought you would have gotten a real estate license, or you would have gotten a contractor's license, or the ability to appraise the mechanicals and the various flaws of properties that you were looking at. But you chose to just go with the experts who were helping you along the way, I presume.
Yeah, I think having a team is super, super important. So I have a broker who has been with me since the beginning. In 2016, I started working with him, and he is the expert of being an agent and a broker. And so to me, I would much rather hire somebody, treat them really well, pay them well, keep them with me on my team, and offload that and say, hey, you know what? You can take over this, I can take over this, and then I can kind of combine and conquer with different things. And so same with contracting. I know enough now. And before, when I was doing my research of what things cost, like a foundation, a roof, framing, like certain things like that. And so when I found a contractor that I could trust, I'm like, okay, I know that you're going to take over a lot of the quoting and like finding things that I won't see right away. And so I can focus on finding deals. I can focus on market knowledge and all those other things. And so I kind of like to hire out a lot of those specialty things.
Now, you just said something important. You said, when I find a contractor I can trust. What was the criteria for trusting a contractor because that's not easy to do.
I've been through a lot of contractors, unfortunately. It's very difficult to find somebody. The pattern seems to be, from what I've seen and a lot of my colleagues have seen, is that a contractor is great for like the first job. Okay, for the second job, third, fourth, fifth job, they taper off. And so I really wanted to build like longevity. So it was very tough to find somebody. And I know that I have big goals and big visions and I'm young. And so if I was meeting another contractor who was also young and had these big ambitions, they'd be like, yes, I want to work with her, but they weren't ready. They bit off more than they could chew. They messed up some things just because they just didn't know what it took. They just wanted to say yes to everything. And so it's tough. I've learned that, taking your time finding a contractor is very important. And then if you have a feeling about them, they're typically right. Like, how does their office look? Do they have an office? How do they speak about their team? What does their job sites look like? What does their work look like? So, when I walk job sites now, I'm looking at a lot of different things. Like, is it messy? Is it clean? Are people respectful? And then also, like, how is the trim? How is the tile? How are the cuts? Is it clean? And then how do they treat me? I understand I'm a young female. So that was a big barrier, especially in the beginning when I was new. Nobody took me seriously as a contractor. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. But yes, finding a contractor you could trust is very difficult.
I don't know why there are so many contractors who are either alcoholics or they're crackheads or they show up on a job site and you look down at their pants by their ankles and you swear there's an ankle bracelet there, but you're not sure. But there's a strong hint of it. I don't know what it is about that industry. So, I don't doubt that it's very difficult to find one that you can trust who's not going to be designated as your plaintiff next year.
Yes.
So you went through that process. You found somebody that you trusted. Now you start looking for property. Was your first project a single family home or a multi-unit?
My first one was a single family because I started in flipping and it was a complete gut to the stud renovation. So it was a lot at once, but because I had such a great understanding of my neighborhood and the location and everything about the market, I felt very comfortable. I said, hey, if I put, I was projecting like 200 into it and I bought it for 250 and I'm like, okay, I can sell it for, 320. And I sold it really close. I sold it for 318, but even worst day of my life, let's just say we go way over budget, I still had a pretty good gap of like profits there. So I think as long as you project over what you need, people usually say 10 to 15% over. I did more than that. And so it's like, okay, it seems pretty safe. So that was my first deal, was a single family.
Now, tell me about the beginning. Did you have a number in mind, how much you would need to save for your first down payment, or investors helping you along the way?
Yeah, I didn't even get that far because I didn't know. I was super young and I was looking. I was like, I need to find this. And when I found it, it was like, it was burnt down. Everything was brand new. I literally gutted it. New
It was
foundation.
burnt down, literally?
Yes. Yeah. I had to the showing instructions for my broker was, you must have a flashlight and a drill to enter at your own risk. And so I was like, okay. But it was cheap. And so to me, I was like, well, if I put, like I said, $200,000 into this, I can make this a really nice house. Like, how was I going to do that? I don't know. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to find a team. I need to find contractors who've done this. I need to, do this and this and this. But I didn't even think about it because the house was so cheap itself. It was only about 30,000. So I purchased it, quote, cash, but I used a home equity line of credit that I had on my primary residence because I bought in the same area that was, Two Chicks and a Hammer, Good Bones, the HGTV show was all over this neighborhood. It's called Fountain Square. So everybody was paying attention to it. And so property values back in 2015, 16 were going way up and they still are now. So I was able to pull out equity on my HELOC. I got like $75,000 on this HELOC. So I bought cash, 30,000. And then from there, I was just like, scraping together little things. And my mom ended up being my first investor. So she got a HELOC and did a cash out refi on her house. And we pulled together all our cash and was able to get it done.
So did you continue buying single family homes or did you eventually go up to multifamily?
So I did buy a number of single family homes on that street at first because I was 2 blocks over from where people wouldn't go, where it was like a bad area to them. But to me, there was no landmark like a mountain or a stream or a highway that was like separating it. It was just like, oh, nobody goes east of this street. And I was like, yeah, but why? And there were a couple houses on the street that were bad. And so to me, I was like, if I just purchase these houses, get these guys out of here, I can turn this neighborhood around. And then whoever comes to look at my house that I just built and they're looking at the neighbors and they don't like them, I can say, well, hey, actually the same developer owns this house, this house, this house, this house, and they're all going to change. So that's how I was able to sell house one. And after that, like I said, my goals changed. I didn't want to keep flipping houses because I wanted to do more buy and holds. And so then I just started offloading these other houses to investors.
So I'm curious, you see this burnt down house, and how much did you have to invest in it to make it look occupiable?
Yeah, at the end of it, including acquisition costs of the actual property itself, it was about 250, 240.
And at no point in this process did you say did you say to yourself, maybe we'll go and look at some other houses
I
before
know.
we
I
buy this?
actually did. Yeah. When I first closed it, because I was just so like focused. And then there were a bunch of tax liens on this house, which was why it was so cheap. And so I owed like $8,000 on this, like 3 months after I bought it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I freaked out. I called my mom. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sell this house. It's fine. I'll make maybe 5 grand. But I was telling her all the while, like what I was doing, like, oh, I went on a run and I saw this house. I walked this house. I see this new house that just sold for 400,000. And so like, she knew that I knew what I was doing. And she's like, no, like, you're not going to offload this. Like, just because of $8,000, you knew that you were going to have to come out of pocket more than 8,000. Like, why are you freaking out now? And I was just, stressing out. And that's how she became my first investor. She said, you know what? I'm going to invest. Like, here we go. Let's do this. Like, I'm now your partner on this. And so, yes, I did definitely have moments of having cold feet, but excuse me, when you know the market so well, like I literally was walking everything. I wasn't looking at anything on a spreadsheet, on a map. Like I was physically walking every single house that was on the market before and after. And so I knew so well that if I had this budget, what could I do? And I knew I could sell it for, like I said, mid threes. So, and that's exactly what happened. So, if we just keep focused and try not to listen to a lot of the noise, it worked out.
So let me tell you how you came to our attention. And that is, you did something that I've only seen one other individual do. And the other individual is a billionaire named Grant Cardone, who always walks the properties of the complexes that he's contemplating buying. He'll fly in, he'll get in the car. He and his team will drive up to the complex. They'll drive in. They'll drive throughout the entire process. They'll talk to people who are coming in to possibly rent the property. It's a very hands-on approach. Usually the big hedge funds, the banks, they send teams in to do a formal appraisals, and then they come back with the numbers. But you actually, laid eyes on the properties that you were checking out in this video we saw you in. So I thought that's how it should be done, because you're doing it, and one of the best in the world is doing it. So that says something. So
Wow.
so that's how you came to our attention. Now, at some point, I'm assuming that you wanted to do multifamily properties, or have ever since then have you continued just doing single families?
Yes. So after, I flipped maybe like 5 houses, like got to the studs like that. And then like I said, as I was continuing through my doctorate program, I was realizing like, wow, like I'm really good at this and I really like this. And I can completely control my time, my schedule, everything. And so that's when I was like, maybe physical therapy isn't for me. And throughout this process, I knew that at come my third year of school, I was going to have to go through what's called a clinical rotation. And that's pretty much where we pay to work for free. Like we had to pay tuition to go to a hospital, an outpatient clinic or whatever, and do 40 hours. And I was in this program that I was driving every other weekend to Ohio for class all day Friday, all day Saturday. It was for people who were already licensed. So, and I already owned a home, a car. So I had all my expenses. I was, 25, 26 years old. And so I was like, I can't just quit and, get more and more student loans while I'm going through my rotation. So I was like, how can I scale this and use real estate to my advantage rather than just paying off my loans? How can I do it so where it's giving me cash flow to replace my salary that I had? And that's when I said, well, I have a couple rentals, are doing pretty well, make a couple $100 a month on each of them. What if I made, $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month to replace my salary? And so that was my new goal. And so I called my broker up. I said, hey, Corey, I think I want to buy an apartment complex. I need to scale. I don't want single families anymore. Everything takes the same amount of time. So instead of taking time to close a single family or a duplex or a triplex, give me a 10 unit, give me a 15, give me a 20. And next week calls me, hey, Kim, I found a 23 unit for you. It's perfect. Oh, let's go. So we put in an LOI right then, locked it up next week. So it just kind of happened like that, where I was like, huh. And I was looking at these numbers and I didn't know anything about value add at the time. I was completely new to that. And I was like, well, these rents are undervalued. So I think I could bump rents. Wasn't thinking about at all renovating the building. I was just like, huh, will this replace my salary? Yes or no? And it was like, yes. I was like, check. Okay. I'm going to buy this, bump rents, and do my clinic rotation. And that's exactly what happened. It replaced my salary. So that's how I got into multifamily.
So the 23 unit, was that in good shape or did that need a lot of work?
It was a C class, but it
Okay.
still had a lot of the things. Like I look back and I knew just enough to be dangerous. And I'm very grateful for that because it had its own, HVAC systems. It had its own, it had AC units. Like a lot of these C-class brick buildings have boiler systems or window units. They had air conditioning compressors already wired individually. It had individual electric meters, so like a lot of those things are like, wow, like people are doing rubs and billing back to the tenants. I didn't have to do any of that. But it was C-class. So I really hate cigarette smoke. I was a tennis player. So like people were smoking inside and, trash around the building. Parking lot was kind of messed up. So there were definitely things I could have done as value add, but I saw like, there's a lot of potential here. And really, I was able to bump rents without doing anything to the units. I would just paint them, replace the floor, like do a regular turnover, and I was good. So it was very solid C-class building.
And do you remember how old was the building when you bought it?
Yeah, it was a 50s build,
So
1950s,
some
1960s.
50s construction is great, isn't it? Very solid.
Yeah, I had no issue. I mean, like it was old still though. Like, if you were on the stairs, it's creaky and it's loud. Like, those old buildings are kind of echoey. So you could tell it was old. But hey, someone who's in there for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath paying 650, they're like, okay, it's fine with me.
Yeah. So, did you have to raise money with investors, or were you in a better position, a stronger financial position at that point to put your own money into it?
Yeah. So at that time, it was 2019 when I closed it, January of 2019. So I had been doing this for about 3 years. So what I did was when I told you I started offloading some of my single families to investors that I was going to flip, I actually offloaded a flip. And I only had to come to the table with like 180,000. So between me offloading a flip and then using my home equity line of credit to come up with the rest of the funds, I was able to close it on my own.
And if you had to guess, what do you think the property has appreciated by? What percentage has it appreciated by, over the last few years?
I can tell you exactly because I just closed on it as a sale last October for 1.3.
1.3. And what did you buy for? What did you pay for it?
625.
Yeah, those are a lot of shifts at the hospital.
Yes,
A
yes,
lot of
yes.
12-hour
And
shifts.
I know. And I 1031 exchanged it into my newest project now that I'm working on, which is a 16 unit. So, which is B class, way better condition. I paid 100 a door for that. So, before I paid, what was it, like offloaded it for 50 a door or something like that, mid 50s. And now I paid 100 a door for a B class. It's like 5 blocks from Lucas Oil Stadium, which is where the Colts play. So way, way, way upgraded the property that I was working on. But now I know value add. So I'm value adding that new 16 unit. But at the time I was like, you know what, this 23, it is what it is. Like I had my equity, I offloaded.
Now, have you been looking for contractors to help you with the new place? Have you found good contractors?
I have. So the contractors that I'm using now are different than I used for my single family. Just because it's different building a house or flipping a house. And hey, I have 16 units and I'm going to put 30 grand into it each unit. I need to be boom, 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 knocking them out. So I was trying a couple different contractors. One is standing out to me right now, who is a younger guy who I think right out the gate really respected me. And I liked the way that he communicated with me. He was very upfront. We did have a couple of hiccups. I was out of town for a long time, as you know, when we were trying to schedule this. And I came back into town and I was told everything was 100% done, ready for release. And so I sent my cleaner in there. And the first time I was looking at the property was when I was meeting my photographer. First thing I see, trash in the back. I was like, I thought this trash was picked up like 3 weeks ago. And then I walk in and I'm like, this floor is kind of bouncy. Wait a second. All of these switches are yellow. Like, did none of these switches get switched out? And I was like, man, there's no light bulbs here. These cuts are messy. I was like, what is going on? And I was like, hey man, I'm about to blow up your phone with pictures, but like, what is going on at my job site here? And then I was super honest with him. I said, you know what? Like, I'm very surprised with what I'm seeing. Like the only thing I can think of is you didn't walk this. You didn't see this. Like, what is going on? And he immediately, he took accountability immediately. He had no excuse. He was just like, yeah, like, you know what? I'm going to head over there. And then he sincerely apologized. And he's been working overtime. He's like, I literally canceled everything to like work on this. And I was like, you know, it kind of stinks that I had to go through that like originally, because I would have expected that to just be done right out the gate, but is what it is. All you can do is how are you going to go forward and fix it? And literally he called me at like 9:45 p.m. and it was a Friday night. And he's like, hey, here's what I finished. I did this, and this. This person's going to come do this. I'm going to do this at cost, blah, blah, blah. Like he was going to repay my cleaner again and pay for new pictures, like out of his pocket. I was like, wow. Okay. You know what? As crappy as the situation was, we both had a terrible day that Friday. This is the best situation that it could have been. And I said, you know what? All right, dude, I'm willing to give you another shot. Like, obviously this was hopefully a fluke on his side, because like I said, I walked his job sites before. I know he does great work. I was just very surprised, but yeah, so that's what happened there. But it seems to be going well so far from what I've seen from his fixes. So I guess I need to be a little bit more hands-on right in the beginning. That's what I learned.
So I'm curious, when you called him that night to let him know about all these problems, had you paid him in full by that point, or was there still a balance outstanding?
I paid him in full.
Really? And he came back that aggressively and took care of it?
And he came out, yeah. And I like I said, I always felt like he really respected me. And I'm like, I don't know if he knew, like, so I gave him a duplex unit, which was across from this 16 unit that he knew was mine. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm trying out this contractor. I gave this other guy 4 of these units from my communications with you. And at the time I thought the duplex was going well. I was like, I would like to give you a shot for the rest of these 12 units. And so maybe it's because he knew that, like, he knows I'm young too. Like, we want to work with each other because we appreciate each other's energy and drive. And it seems like our goals were really aligned for me being investor, him being contractor. And then when it got so messed up, because he even admitted, he's like, I tried a new tile guy, I was trying to get this done quickly. And, I have other projects. And I was like, listen, I understand I'm not your only client here, but this is really bad. And I even sent one of my other friends and colleague of mine who flipped homes. Like he's got like 30 homes a month just flipping. I was like, can you check this out? Like, am I insane? Do I just have a crazy eye for expectation? He's like, walks in, he's like, oh no, this is crap. There's no comparison. I was like, okay, thank God. So yeah. But I paid him in full and he still came back. So
when investors like you are looking for contractors, do you guys go to Angie's List? Do you go somewhere else? Do you put ads out on your own? How do you find contractors to interview?
I do word of mouth a lot. I haven't done like Thumbtack or Angie's List in a while. Like if I'm looking for someone like a handyman, like a smaller job, I'll go to those sites. But recently it's been word of mouth. Like normally, because I'm so, like you said, I walk neighborhoods. And so if I see a house I like and I see a crew on site, I'm not shy. I'm going to go right up to that crew. Hi, I'm Kim. What's your name? Like, do you do side work? Like, I got this job over here. Like, you look like you're doing great work. Like, let's talk. And so I get people's numbers left and right, like just based on what I see out in the streets. And so this was a guy that I knew around the area. And then I had mutual friends with him just because I also live in the area that I flip in and renovate. And so it was just one of those things.
Now, what city are you doing this in again?
Indianapolis, Indiana, downtown.
And do you plan to remain there or are you going to expand?
Yeah. So recently, within this last year, I've made it a goal of mine to get more towards Austin, Texas. So I've done a storage deal out there. It was like 128 unit storage deal that we were going to expand, like add about 50,000 square feet. But then I'm doing a condo out there too. So there's like other things that I really want to start doing more like out in Austin, Texas, because it's cold here in the winter time. So I like going to Austin for the winters, and it's a growing city. It's the fastest growing city in the US right now. There's no denying that. And it's still super landlord friendly, and there's a lot of great things going for it. So my play is going to be different out there. Like I'm going to be doing more JV partnerships, which is not what I've ever done here out there, because obviously the cost of entry, but also the opportunity out there is different. Like I never thought to look at storage until I was like, oh, wow, like this amazing storage deal, like we're going to like triple our money in like 5 years on that storage deal. Like no one would pass that up. So yes, expanding to Austin.
So, Texas used to be a very inexpensive place to get a large home. Is that still the case, or is the market changing quickly?
Ooh, depends where you go. Like I said, I'm super specific in my focus, and I'm focused on Austin only. So I couldn't tell you about Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. I don't know much about those, but Austin, oh my goodness. A year and a half ago, you'd buy a home for 600,000, and they're now over, like they're doubled. They're 1.3 now. And it's like, people are buying them, and there's, Tesla's going out there, like all of these tech companies and like huge corporations are moving from California to Texas to Austin. And so it's like, you can't build enough houses. You can't build enough apartments. It's like crazy over there. So yes, it's insane. Like I don't know much about anything else other than like Austin and North Burbs, but it's very, very crazy.
So, are you going to relocate out there so that you can manage things in person, or are you going to hire a manager to take care of your projects?
Yeah, so I do have partners out there right now. My goal was to get out there full time, and I was really trying to do that this year, but I've been super, super honest with myself actually within these last 2 weeks that, I keep saying I'm going to go out there 80% of the time, but it's like, I have so much going on here. I have a triplex I'm totally gutting and rehabbing, and then the 16 unit, and then that duplex. And, with those couple little hiccups with this contractor. And I'm like, man, I really need to be here hands on and get this to be a well-oiled machine before I feel comfortable leaving Indy. Because Indy is I know Indy like the back of my hand. I can hear an address and know exactly where it is, know what's around it. And so I feel like if I left too early, I'd be doing myself and my business huge disservice. Austin's not going anywhere. So I know that like eventually is a goal of mine, but like, I just don't know when and how feasible it is. So we'll have to see.
So everyone keeps talking about the coming collapse of the real estate market. We see that the market for super expensive homes is already imploding. Sylvester Stallone had to drop the price of his house out in California dramatically before he was able to sell it to singer Adele. Do you see any signs of prices beginning to decline or soften or lower in the mid-priced category, or even in the lower-priced homes? Do you see any signs of that? And not yet.
Oh, honestly, I am in Indianapolis, and Indianapolis is known from investors around the nation for being super stable. So the coasts, I'm sure, are up and down, and maybe even Texas could be up and down, but like Indy is so solid, rock solid, strong. I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm still seeing a ton of people building homes, which I can't make sense of. I was going to develop ground up 37 units, but I put that on the back burner because I'm like, man, these costs of lumber, the cost of concrete, the cost of glue is so expensive. And, with gas prices and all this crazy stuff going on in the world right now, like prices to build are really high. So I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me, but I'm watching out my window here. Like it's not stopping anybody else. So yeah, and the market's still super hot. Like a lot of my friends, like two of my closest friends are agents and brokers, and they're like left and right closings all the time. So I'm not seeing much of that.
You mentioned lumber and wanting to do a massive apartment development complex. You can, let's say the project takes a year to build, a year and a half, whatever. The price swing from day one on lumber, the price swing from day one to 12 or 18 months out can be so dramatically different that can really knock you out of the ballpark if it swings in the wrong direction. That's
been
a huge
happening.
risk.
Yeah, I had a contractor originally who I was talking about doing this with. We were going to bring him in as a partner, and he was saying on one of his houses, the bill went up by 40%. 40%. on lumber. And I'm like, whoa, we're cushioning, like I said earlier, 10%, 15%, 20% max, like 40%. Now we're to the point where we have to rerun these numbers in the pro forma. Is this going to make sense if we get to the point of, the whole entitlement process with the city, zoning, permits, and we're ready to break ground and we go and get this lumber and it's like 40% more? That's a showstopper. It no longer works, because I can go buy, like I said, the 16 unit for 100 door, 1.6, put 400 into it, and now it's worth 3 million. I'd much rather do that all day long than do a ground up, take 18 to however many months to finish this thing, and have your numbers be very mediocre, if not way under. Like it just doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. I've been seeing that all over.
How much can these prices keep climbing before the gas just comes out of the balloon?
Jeez, I don't know. You're asking the wrong girl. I don't know. I thought it would have stopped a long time ago, and here we go. So I don't know. It's crazy, but it's not stopping people. They're still building. They're still developing. Things are still flourishing. So we'll see.
Yeah, the way a lot of builders and developers, the way they go bankrupt is they just keep adding and building and adding and build and increasing the size of the projects until the music stops and you can't sell anything. And then it's straight to bankruptcy court. It's usually the way it ends. So
I hope that doesn't happen.
yeah, yeah. So we're getting this question from all sides. So I'm going to ask you, if someone were to try and enter the real estate market today, could they still do it the way you did it years ago? And if not, what would the proper approach be?
I think you can. I really think you can. It's any time is a great time. When I started, I was like, wow, look at what things were trading in 2012, and it was 2015, 16. Like, oh man. And I'm like, geez, prices are so high. And now I look back at those times. I'm like, wow, look how cheap. You should have bought everything. And I know 5 years from now, we could be looking back and saying the same thing. Wow, look what things were like. And I think if you just have, like I said, just a very specific focus and goal in mind, and stick to that and focus on just that, and be, don't get emotional about things, because you make money when you buy, not when you sell. And so if you buy something correctly and some things hiccup or go wrong, and you have to, something takes longer than you want it to, or something takes more money than you want it to because of materials or contractors or whatever it may be, run that from the beginning and know that you're still going to be okay. And if that deal still works, then that's a slam dunk deal. Do it right now. And I still see those now. And even though I'm not buying single families anymore, throughout the course of these 6 years, I'm super tight with my friend group. They're like my family. Every single one of my friends now owns property. Like a good friend of mine just closed a property yesterday. So we went out and celebrated. And they'll still buy these single families. And if I see something, I'm like, that's a slam dunk. That's not going to last. Oh my God. Like, somebody please buy it. Like, normally one of my friends would be like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going to buy it right now. You just got to be fast though, is the problem. So a lot of people who are new, if they're not sure, like I get this a lot where I hear people say, oh, I'm going to wait till June and then I'll be ready, or I want to save up a year. It's like, okay, well, what's wrong with saving up or waiting, but also continuing to learn the market now, walk properties now? Because what happens in June or next year, you're just going to be like, okay, I'm ready to buy, and just buy the first thing you see? No, it's going to take a while for you to find that deal that makes sense, that works. And you're going to have to walk a lot of properties. You're going to have to underwrite a lot of properties before knowing if that's going to be the right one. And so I say, why not start now? There's no one, coming down your neck to do anything. Like, you're completely in control of when you do your deal, but like, you have to learn now. And so that's what I always say to someone new, like, like I said, that's what I was doing when I started. Like you said, the question was, if the way I started, I would just walk everything. I didn't know I was going to buy a flip that was burnt down. It was probably in my best interest to not do that as my first one. But because I knew so much about the neighborhood, I saw it and I was like, I have to do this. Like, I cannot pass this up. And lo and behold, hey, I projected to make $60,000 and I made 55. Perfect. Like, that's great. Like, even if I would have made 30, if I would have made 10, that would have been a win. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, there are deals out there for everybody. You just got to be ready, and you got to be super knowledgeable about what you want and keep your goals in mind.
The first house I ever bought was right next door to my mother's house. It was a 3-apartment home, and it was in Southwest Detroit. So you know what that neighborhood was
Oh,
like.
yeah.
So that was my foray into real estate. So let me ask you this: how much should, let's say somebody's middle class, they're struggling to support their family, and they want to gain entree into the real estate business? What's the absolute minimum you think they should have available to fund this attempt? Can it be done with 10,000? Should they have 50, 100,000? What do you think it would take today?
I think it doesn't even have to be about money. I think if somebody, because if you're a middle class family, and I hear family, so I hear spouse and I hear potentially kids. And so to me, that is number one. That needs to stay the priority, because if you mess up, there's a lot of people who are depending on you. And so to me, again, go back to what you want to offer to the market. Like, so for me, if I had no money at all, like I just walked a deal this morning with a guy who wanted to bring me in on these apartments. And I know it's because of my market knowledge. It's because I'm local and because I'm really good at what I do. But I don't think I would have to bring in one dime to that deal to still get a piece of it and have it make sense for them and for me. And so I would say to somebody new, maybe you have connections to people with money. Maybe you're a really good networker. Maybe you like learn the market a ton and your boots on the ground for somebody who is in California and they want you to run this deal and they have all the money. So it's like, what are you bringing? Like, so I don't think that everyone needs money to do this. I think you just need to have the know-how and bring something to the table as not replaceable and sell that to somebody who is looking for you, because you're a team member for somebody. Like, nobody can wear every hat, right? So I don't think you need any certain amount of money.
Do you think people should consider going to real estate investment clubs? Where people meet once a week or once a month? Is that
100%.
realistic? Yeah.
I think it's a team sport. And I think the more people you meet and the more you immerse yourself in that world, the better you are, the more likely you are to like get deals done. Like I know people, gosh, I'm in a group called the Real Estate Lab, and Real Estate Lab is a new software for underwriting. And they have a community of people. It's about 170 people or so. And people who are like just quitting their jobs and jumping right in and just literally just like cold calling owners and doing this, doing that. And then they find a deal. Then from this group, they know people who have cash who want to passively invest. And then they're the guy who's like, hey, I got the deal. Okay, this person's going to underwrite it and this person's going to bring the money. And they're like the person is putting it all together. And I think that's super valuable. So, like whether you want to flip houses or get into multifamily, like if you want to do multifamily, this is what I did. Only go to multifamily meetups, like only do that. Like don't be networking with like single family flippers, because they're going to be focused on their thing. If you want to switch and do multifamily, yeah, go to multifamily meetups. Like, hi, I'm Kim. Like, I have a background in single family, or hey, I have a background in healthcare, but I want to get into this. This is what I think I'm going to be learning about. What do you do? How can I help you? How can I bring value to you? And the more conversations you have like that, and the more you build relationships with people, because it's not all about business. Maybe you want to go bowling with them, or maybe you want to go on a hike, or, go out for drinks or go to dinner and just get to know each other because you like each other and like spending time with one another. Like that's what it's about. And then that'll just open the door. And then someone, hey, I met Kim. She's really good at this. You should talk to her about this. Or, hey, Kim knows this person. Or, hey, she met this guy, John, who's really cool and has this cool podcast, like, whatever. So it's like all within networks. I think that's super important for people to do.
So in the 2000s, lenders were giving mortgages to anybody with a pulse. How is the lending environment now for mortgages? Is it stricter, or has the underwriting of loans relaxed and loosened up? How is it out there for, let's say, people with terrible credit and maybe little or no money down, or perhaps they haven't been working for 2 years and don't have taxes? How difficult and challenging is it for those people to acquire funding through a bank or through an alternative?
That's tough. I don't know much about that because I don't do a lot of that. Like the last mortgage I got was for my single family home, which I should not have gotten approved for it because my taxes are terrible because, we write everything off. But the guy that I went to understood. He's like, I know you're entrepreneur type. Like, I know you make a lot more than what this seems. And so like, send me your balance sheet, send me your personal financial statement. So he approved me because he knew. And so like I had a track record. But other than that, the only loans I'm getting are for multifamily. And I'm able to then use Real Estate Lab software and project a pro forma for 10 years. I'm going to put this amount into the building. I'm going to bump rents by this much. So I'm going to change. I'm going to refinance on year 3. And here's my pro forma. It's super, super in depth and super sophisticated. And so I can send that to a bank and say, hey, lend me $1.6 million for the 16 unit and give me $400,000 for my renovations. And they look at what I did and they're like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Yes, here you go. And so it wasn't very tough for me. So as far as like people getting loans, I do know that they have, the FHA where, a good friend of mine just bought his first house last year and he came to the table with like $4,000. Like that's it, which was great, and, he moved out this year and rented it out. Now he's cash flowing because he's got great debt on it. So, I think if you find the right lender and you have a good story to tell, like, why is your credit bad? Why have you not been working for 2 years? If it's all about relationships, right? So if you kind of tell your story, like I told my story to this banker and he approved me for this house I should have never been approved for. And now here I am. So, all about relationships.
How big is your team now? You have a real estate agent, I assume, that you work with regularly. You have the contractors who work on your home. Do you use a real estate attorney? Any other specialists that help you?
Yeah, I have a great attorney that I go to. He's actually out of Detroit. I can literally send him something. I'm like, hey, I need this back by tomorrow. He'll get it done. Expensive, but worth it to have somebody like that. Like I said, treat him well, pay him quick. I have my contractor and the closest person on my team is definitely my real estate agent, my broker. I've started bringing him in on deals with me because since 2016, like he's worth his weight in gold. Like the amount of deals he's brought me, like he prioritizes me because he knows I will do anything to get a deal closed. If I say yes, he's like, all right, it's done, like 100% going to close. And so, and he's boots on the ground. If I'm away in Austin or in Hawaii or wherever I might be, like he will run over to a job site for me if I have to. And he's super, super smart and he's got a great eye. So, I started bringing him in and giving him equity of things. And so, my team is small but mighty,
So have you encountered any horrific challenges that you never thought you would have to face throughout this whole process? You've been doing it for what now, 5, 7 years? How long?
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
Has anything ever really blown up so badly that you just stood back and couldn't believe what was happening?
The only time I can think of was in the beginning when 2 contractors in a row were bad. And I don't think they were bad people. I just think that they had, rose-colored glasses. I was like, oh my gosh, like I really, really, really want to do this work for this person, which was me. And they just didn't have the team in place. They didn't have anything. They didn't know how to do it. And unfortunately, 2 times in a row that happened. So that was like, oh my gosh, how can I make the same mistake twice? Like this is not for me. And then of course, that's when I transitioned out of flipping houses and I started doing buy and hold. So I was like, all right, I'm good on flipping. That was a mistake, but now I've learned from that. And so when I'm screening contractors now, I'm a lot more thorough and like, because before I was like, okay, this person did this. It was horrible. Then this new contractor was a referral, word of mouth. And so then I put down this person said he was good, so he must be good, right? No, this guy was like, oh man, I'm sorry this happened to you. Like, oh man, and was showing me all these pictures of all of his other jobs. It's like, it looks like he does good work. He's empathetic. He seems like he'll fix all of my problems. Perfect. I have other things going on. If you're going to take this on, great, take care of it. And then I was focused on other things and that was wrong. I needed to not do that and not give him as many jobs or not as many gut to the studs. It's like one thing if it was replacing the floor and painting the walls. It was like, no, we're moving walls, we're moving stairs, we're bumping out roofs. It was very, very in depth. So that was one time where I was just like holding my head like, oh my God, like this is so bad. But we got through it. Everything was fine at the end of the day, but that was probably the worst of it.
Now, during the lockdown, for 2 years, it was very difficult to evict people in a lot of states. Was that ever an issue for you? Do you screen your own tenants or do you have a management company do it? How was that whole process?
Yeah, thank God. I did not have to deal with that. I had 2 tenants. One literally paid their lease or like paid their break a lease fee to break their lease. I'm sure if they would have asked me, I would have not made them pay, but they just like paid it and like, hey, we're leaving next month. I was like, wow, okay. Because they were in the service industry. And then another tenant of mine was consistently late. but they were really good about telling me, hey, like, can I have a break this month, or like, can I have an additional 2 weeks? Those are my single families that I had. I had about like 10 single family homes under my belt that I was self-managing. And my apartment, which is the one I mentioned earlier, it was the 23 unit that doubled in value when I just sold. It was a C class. I had a manager for that, but I didn't have any issues. Like, maybe a couple people were late here and there, but a lot of them were like, they weren't Section 8, but they were like, with the military or something like that. Like, they had some sort of government funding. And so that, like, half of it was paid for them already. And then the other half, they were just super, like, the manager was taking care of it. Like, we would waive late fees and stuff, but luckily I did not have any issues. It could have been so bad, but it was not.
If you wanted to find a fourplex in your town now that you could occupy one of the units in and rent out the other three, would that be difficult? Is there so much competition out there that people are just fighting for every unit out there now? What is it like?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, but if you're okay with paying a higher price point, or if you're okay with doing a value add, like a heavier value add, or if you're okay with not being right in the center. Like I said, I'm super specific with where I invest. I'm Fountain Square heavy because I live in Fountain Square and I like being a mile from the center of downtown. But if you're okay with, a suburb, or like going a little bit further out from the city, you can find it still. You just have to be very quick. You have to know, like I said, you have to be very, very fast. Like, you can find it. Like, you just might be paying a little bit more, have a little bit more work to do, or you might have to be fast. It's doable though.
If the real estate market starts to implode, are you going to continue on this path, or are you just going to ride it down to the bottom and then start again?
Ooh, that's tough. Like, I think I would ride it out because, like I said earlier, you make money when you buy. So I bought a lot of my properties super, super good. And I'm also in a super stable market. So if it implodes, my duplex, let's just say, I'll use this as an example. I bought a duplex in a neighborhood called Old Southside, which is right where my 16 unit apartment is, different duplex, but it's right next to Lucas Oil Stadium. It's probably worth like 250 right now. I bought it for 73,000. So if it implodes and, oh no, it goes down to $100,000, like, I still bought it right. So it's like, it's not worth as much as if I would have gotten my equity out, but am I really losing any? Like, so I always think about that. Like, the only thing that may go down in value would be my 16 unit, because I bought it for 100 door, which is high for Indianapolis, but it was a 1997 build, got it in 2016, and it's right by downtown. So it's like, are the people who are going to be affected by this crash really not going to, like, if I wanted to offload that, the person who's going to buy that would not be as affected in my eyes. Like, they would still be like, yeah, it's a great building, I'll still buy this. And so I think about that. And so I think I would still ride it out.
What impacts real estate values in your town most? Is it crime? Is it the level of unemployment? Is it something else? What is the driving factor for home values?
Yeah, that's tough because unemployment is so low here in Indianapolis. Like, we have like one of the lowest unemployment rates. So I would say crime probably affects it, because if you come to an area that you're like, I don't know about this area, and then there's like a lot of crime there, a lot of people don't like that. But I am one to just not accept that, like, oh, this is a bad area. I'm like, why? And normally it's one or two houses. And so if you really like that deal and you like that area, hey, how much are you wanting to like invest? Like, where are your roots? Like, do you want to put roots? Like, that street that I bought a bunch of houses on, like, when I first started flipping, I lived on that street. I built my own house for a year and a half. So I believed in it so much. I was like, I can get rid of these guys and I can do this. And there's a lot of money to be made. I know a lot of investors aren't going to go that far, but if you like a deal, go there, see it, feel it. Like you said, who's walking, who's living there, who's moving there, who's working there, who's maintaining it? What is the city doing? Is any allocated funds going anywhere nearby to a city development? And if you see that, it's like, okay, then why is this area bad? Who is the one that's breaking in, shooting people? Like, what house is it coming from? Like, and then, hey, all right, who owns that house? Can you convince them to sell? Probably. Everything's for sale for the right price and for the right negotiations. And so, hey, send your broker in there. Hey, close them up and, there you go. Now you have 2 deals or 3 deals or whatever it is. And then the people who have been living there for 15 years see you. Hey, thank you for changing this neighborhood. Hey, my son is selling their house. You want to buy my house? You want to, so then you control the market completely. So that's what I would do.
See, I think that's your superpower. You have this granular understanding, this really detailed understanding of your area. And somebody in New York who's on the computer scanning the algorithmic analysis of that same zip code is still not going to see what you see. I think that's really the magic here.
Yeah, I agree. I went super deep into that because I'm not a numbers girl. I didn't have a ton of money when I started. I didn't come from like nothing because I did have a HELOC and stuff like that. My mom backed me, but my market knowledge, I was like, I got this because I was a consumer first. I bought a home when I was 24, a little 2-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1,100 square foot house. And I was like, I know what people want my age around here. And so I always look at it from the eye of a consumer because that's your exit strategy. I'm never going to look at it from a spreadsheet or like, things like that, because that's not who it's for. It's for the consumer.
How do you find a really good real estate agent? Do you have a criteria?
Man, that's tough because I'm so loyal to my agent right now. There's so many people who try to work with me and I'm like, no, I love him so much. So I'll just describe Corey Gardner Property Group in Indianapolis. Extremely knowledgeable. Like you can tell that they are as much of an expert, if not more than me as an investor. They're always going to be super straight up with you. They're not just going to do something for a sale. There's so many people that I see in other states. Oh, perfect example. If I'm trying to find something in Austin or Nashville or whatever, people are just trying to close a deal just to get a commission. That is not Corey Gardner. He is like, all right, I'm going to close this for you. And then if you ever sell it, or if people around you, I want to make sure that you're good. Like, I want you to do well. I want the next person to do well. Like, what are your goals? Like he goes super deep and he has a super great understanding of everything in business. And so it's like, yeah, just like knowledgeable, like a teammate, it's not just somebody that you're hiring and here you go, like close this for me, get a commission and you're on your way. This is like, they're there for you, right? Like this is your teammate. Like if I was out of town, how many people can call their agent to like go like run to a property for you? But then again, I brought him in on equity, but he deserved it. Like you don't just give out equity like candy, like he really proved that to me just by different things that he's done. And he's the only person I've ever met. Him and his colleague Matt like are the same. And like it's so rare to find those characteristics in a broker that actually really, really care for your deal as much as you do.
So, Kimberly, what's the next phase of all of this? What's the next level as you progress through all of this? Have you thought about the next 5 years?
Yeah, I do. I do all the time. I thought it would be Austin, but it's so hard because there's so much going on right now. Like step one, I need to get the 16 unit completely turned around. And then the other like triplex, duplex, whatever, like done, And I really do want to do a bigger multifamily. Like once I flip around the 16 unit, I really would like to do a 50, 100, and really turn it around and have bigger multifamilies. But also I want to start doing kind of like I've been doing in Austin, bigger things that I'm more hands off as like a JV partner, like, this self-storage fund, for instance. Like I want to be in a position financially to be able to do that. So I went in on a storage fund, like we did great on that one. And, I invested like $50,000. But this next thing that these guys are doing is like, okay, Central Texas Storage Fund. The minimum to invest is.
By the way, when you say storage fund, do you mean like a storage unit?
Yeah. So the fund, they're raising $10 million between now and like October of this year.
Okay.
And they're focusing on self-storage, and they're projected to like double your money. In 5 years, you get a pref, like an 8 pref as well throughout the process. And their exit is selling it to like a REIT or like a fund, like who only buys storage. So like, and it's going to be like great storage deals, like value add development deals, like automation, like all of that type of stuff. So they just call it like the Central Texas Storage Fund. And so it's great returns, great opportunity, but the minimum to invest is 250. So I'm like, all right, how am I going to get 250 so I can do this? And so I think my 5-year goal is to like be able to do more of those where I could be hands off and have somebody else who's an expert running that, and that money working for me. And then on the other side, me doing my little boutique things, like, the 50 units where I can make them super nice. Like I have a handful of Airbnb units right now, about 6 of them in Indy that I really like, hosting people and making it cute for travel nurses or people who like football games. And I want to do that. Like I want people to really start like loving visiting Indy in the summertime and or in the winter, or if like, we have a great health system here and it's a tech hub. And so I really do want to do like my little fun things on the side too. And then eventually just be able to have my time, having a family to me is very important in the future. And whoever my husband is going to be my number one. And then my kiddos are going to be my number two. And so right now I don't have either of those things. And so I'm going to hustle in my business so that when it comes time to step back, that's working for me. It's a well-oiled machine. I'm not going to have to be so hands-on, with contractors and properties and stuff like that, so that I can just, have my life and have my time free.
How's the mobile home park business? Is that still a growth opportunity or is that a headache?
I think it is a growth opportunity, definitely. I know a couple friends that are crushing it with mobile home parks. For me personally, it doesn't really jazz me up. I don't really feel like I have a passion for that type of thing. So I personally haven't looked into it, but I know there's like a lot of meat on the bone. There's great ways to make money in mobile home parks. I just personally can't speak on it because I'm not like, yay, mobile home parks. I can't wait to like buy this. Like, I'm just like, I'm good. Like storage enough is boring enough for me, but I'm like, you know what? Like, that's okay if I have like this and this, but I just not interested in mobile home park. I don't know.
I think a lot more people
Maybe one day.
Yeah, I think a lot more people are going to be using storage parks, in the future. It just seems like it makes sense. Well, before we wrap things
Yeah.
up, is there anything you would like to promote?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has any sort of Indianapolis interest, like I'm here to help.
Mm.
Deals, advice, anything like that. I mean, I really feel strongly about Indianapolis as a strong market, and I'm super specific in where my areas are. So if anybody has anything in Indy or wants to chat, partner, anything like that, yeah, you guys can send me an email, kim@reddoorrenovation.com, or you guys can follow me on Instagram, Kimberly Marie 920.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I could talk about real estate all day long. I just love the topic. But I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to wish you all the best, and we'll talk to you again sometime in the future, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.